This is Keith Helwig from Cops Correction Short Videos. I'd like to talk about a hot button topic today, that being the killing of unarmed black men by police officers. So far during 2018, there have been 12 black men killed by police officers across the country that fall into the category of being unarmed. Now, out of these 12, there's different factors involved that you need to take into consideration. Out of the 12, two of them were mental patients. The police had no idea of what they were dealing with or who they were dealing with. The persons became erratic and threatening, and unfortunately, it resulted in their death. 9 of the people, of the young black men killed by police officers, were actively fighting and resisting arrest. By doing that, I mean they were running away from police after being involved in felonious activities involving shootings, violent acts. They were trying to disarm the police officer, or they were actively fighting with the police officer. Now, there was one death by a line of duty officer, which I do consider unexcusable. I don't mean to belittle or berate the death of anyone. The death of anyone is indeed a tragedy. One misnomer I'd like to correct is the myth of an unarmed confrontation with a police officer. Back in one of my former lives, I used to be a firearms instructor. I would have a class regularly full of 30 to 40 police officers, and one of the first things I'd ask them is how many people in this classroom have ever been in an armed confrontation. Out of that 30 or 40 people, I maybe got 5 or 6 that raised their hand. I would then ask them how many people in this room carry a firearm every day. And of course, everybody raised their hand. Then I pointed out that every confrontation that you're in as a police officer is an armed confrontation. You bring it with you. You have that weapon with you. I look back on the celebrated Michael Brown case. Michael Brown was an unarmed black man. He was unarmed until he tried to take Officer Wilson's firearm away from him. If he'd gotten that firearm, do you think he was just going to take the gun and run away? I doubt it. I doubt it. Officer Wilson acted in a legal, proper manner. Of course, he's been crucified and vilified by certain members of our society because of his actions, but individuals like Michael Brown were anything but innocent, unarmed black men. A statistic that I just found out today is that a black man stands an 18.5 times greater chance of being killed by another black man than they do of being killed by police. A friend of mine, James Lewis, recently posted on Facebook about Colin Kaepernick and his protests against police brutality. Perhaps Colin Kaepernick, the rest of the overpaid millionaire game players, and the Black Lives crowd, or Black Lives Matter crowd, would have much more validity if they were addressing the fact of black on black crime. Looking at statistics, 94% of black people who were murdered in the past 2 years have been murdered by other black people. Why is that not something that they're addressing? Why is that not an issue with Colin Kaepernick and his crowd? Why is that not an issue with Black Lives Matter? Why is it only an issue when it's a white officer or a black officer that kills a black man? Just yesterday, Officer Garrett Hull of the Fort Worth, Texas Police Department died in the line of duty. Officer Hull was involved in a group of officers trying to apprehend a group of young black men who were committing armed robberies in a black community, and he was shot in the head and he was killed. Yet there will be no protests over his death. There will be no public outcry over his death. Had it been the other way around, and the number of people killed were black, there would undoubtedly be protests. As it was, the individual who shot Officer Hull was ultimately killed. He met his ultimate demise based on his own actions. I won't say his name, it merits no mention. Officer Hull died doing his job, as have the other 34 officers feloniously killed in the line of duty during 2018. Yet, you will hear no protests, you will hear no outcries, there will be no looting, there will be no rioting. Their deaths will largely go unnoticed except by the communities they served and by the officers that they served with. Thank you, stay safe, and watch your back.